So we have already spent some time during this series as we've been talking about depression, talking about the importance of being open with one another, sharing about our struggles. But that is a two-way street. And so far we've just kind of dealt with the individuals who might be sharing. And tonight we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about how do we, as friends, as family, as the church, offer help for those who might be dealing with some of the issues that we've been talking about. When we talked at the beginning of this series about wanting to be a resource, certainly we want to be a resource for those of you who may be dealing with some of the challenges that come along with depression. But we also want to be a resource for those of you who have friends and family who are fighting these battles and aren't 100% sure how to handle that. And so hopefully tonight, by looking at Job's three friends, we can come away with some practical advice for how to help our friends and family as they wrestle with depression. The passage that we just read shows us a glimpse of Job's friends when they first arrive on the scene. And truthfully, in a book that is 42 chapters long, these just few verses are Job's friends at their very peak. You read this and you think, man, those are great friends. They show up, they see that he's in pain. For 7 straight days, they just sit in silence, listening. No talking, no lame attempts to comfort. They just sit and they share with their friend in his grief. And then they open their mouths. And as much as I would like to be hard on Job's friends, I think frequently I fit the mold of Job's friends. I'll show up to comfort, to help someone who's going through struggles, and I'm really, really good. And then I open my mouth. I want to say the right thing. I want to be helpful. But as my wife will often point out, sometimes the best thing you can do is not say anything. I don't know if that's just me or if that's advice she would give everyone. I'm thinking maybe it's just me. And so we actually find out that Job's 3 friends are terrible comforters. For 7 days they were great. But Job chapter 16 verse 2, we are told that Job's friends are terrible comforters. And I don't know about you, but that is not how I want to be described when it comes to the way that I help my friends and family as they wrestle with depression. And so we're going to spend some time this evening looking at these 3 friends, the things that they did right and the things that they did wrong. And what I hope that you will take away from this is twofold. Number one, if you are one of the individuals that has been dealing with some of the challenges that we've been talking about, depression is something that you've been wrestling with in one form or the other, I hope that the kind of friends we're going to talk about tonight, those are the type of people you will try to surround yourself with. It is good to have people in your life that are going to comfort and lift you up in the right way. And so we're going to talk about some characteristics that make good comforters. Those are the type of people you need to surround yourself with. The second takeaway tonight is for those of you who may not fall into that category. And you instead are looking to be a resource to your friends and to your family and to those in the church. These are things that we should strive to be when it comes to the way that we deal and comfort with others. And so let's just walk through some of those tonight. Number one on your outline, a good friend is aware. A good friend is aware. And what I mean by aware is you know when the people in your life are dealing with things. Now, this is difficult because we have already talked about the fact that we as people are good at hiding things. We are very good at taking those nasty feelings, tucking them away deep down inside, and acting as if we are all okay. And so, as friends who are aware, we have to be on the lookout. In Job chapter 2 that we just read, verse 11 said that they heard about his adversity. They were aware. They knew about the struggles in Job's life. This is a time before social media. This is a time before cell phones. Job's friends did not just get a text message about what had happened. Job's friends are in touch with what's going on in Job's life. And so they heard about his struggles. And verse 13 says that they saw his great pain. They saw that his pain was great. Those may seem like little things, but it shows friends who are aware of the struggles of Job. And unfortunately, I think there are times where we aren't very good comforters because we don't even know anything is going on. We don't recognize that someone in our life is dealing with challenges in their own life because we're just not aware. Once a week, I will go to lunch with a group of guys that I went to college with. A lot of them are guys I grew up with. We're close friends, and we get together once a week and just try to spend some time together. And frequently, my wife will ask me when I come home on those days, how are the guys? And I'll say, good. And she'll say, what's new? And I'll say, nothing. And she'll say, how long did you guys have lunch? And I'm like 45 minutes. She said, and nothing's new. Nothing's new. It's like, what did you talk about for 45 minutes? I don't remember. Football? Whether or not I should have got the spicy nuggets at Wendy's? I don't like. There are times where she'll ask me that. I'm like, really? What did we talk about? Now, there are times where me and my friends will open up more and share. But I think sometimes I don't know what's going on in the lives of others because my conversations are surface level. And especially when it comes to relationships here in church where we just pass each other in the hall. How you doing? I'm good. How are you? Great. And then we continue on our way. When you only deal with the surface level, you never know what's going on. And so being a good friend means being aware. You have to watch. You have to be looking out for potential problems. Has their behavior changed? Do they suddenly seem more moody? Do they seem less interested in certain activities? If so, those are things you should recognize. And rather than being the friend that says, I don't want an awkward situation where I ask them if something's wrong and then they just want to talk about it, so I'll just ignore it. A good friend is aware. And here are some questions you can ask if you sense that something may be wrong. Is everything okay? Now, we've already talked about how this is one that's easy to brush aside. Is everything okay? Yes, everything is okay. But sometimes your friends just may need to hear you say, hey, is everything okay? You've seemed a little off lately. Is everything okay? That may give them an opportunity to open up. And if they do say, yeah, I'm doing okay, say, are you telling the truth? Do you really feel that way? Or is there something going on? I don't know about you. Sometimes I need a little prodding in order for me to open up. And that's okay. If your friend is frustrated and says, I told you, I'm fine, leave me alone. Okay. You've done your job as a friend, and you may wait a while until you ask him again. But sometimes I think we just need someone to say, you seem off. Something seems different. Really, is everything okay? And if they do open up and they say, no, I'm not okay, just ask them, what in your life right now is not okay? And that gives them an opportunity, whether it's something through work or something with family or something they can't exactly pinpoint, they can begin to share some of the things that they're dealing with. Another question that I think is important as we begin to talk with our friends and family is, are there unhealthy ways that you have been dealing with the negative feelings that you're dealing with? I think it's not always just about talking about our feelings, but sometimes because of those negative feelings, we act in ways we don't want to act. We deal with those feelings in unhealthy ways. And so that's a good question to ask. Look, have you been dealing with those negative feelings in unhealthy ways? Allow them to open up. Look, some of you right now are hearing questions and you're like, I can't even imagine myself sitting down with a friend and having a conversation like that. I'm just not that kind of person. And without stepping on your toes too much, I want to tell you, you need to become that kind of person. Now, you may have your own approach. You may have your own style. We're different personalities. But God did not give anyone the green light to not be involved in people's lives just because that's not their personality. And so whether it's a friend, whether it's a family member, we have to be willing to ask the tough questions. We have to be aware. Number 2, a good friend takes action. It is not enough just to know what's going on in a friend's life. At some point, action has to take place. And so when Job's friends heard that something was wrong, they took action. They dropped their lives, everything that was going on in their lives, they left it behind, and they came and they sat with Job to the point that for 7 days they sit on the ground in complete silence. I don't know about you. I don't know if I could for 7 days just go sit with a friend. Just be there with them. Job's friends did it. They were willing to make sacrifices, put those things aside, and come and spend some time with Job. And so sometimes the very best thing we can do is just be there for someone. Show up. Say, hey, I'm here. For those of you who have been through tragedy in the past or through times of great difficulty, you know that sometimes it's not a person sitting in the room talking, it's just a person sitting in the room. That's a comfort to you. And so Job's friends at least got that right. They took action. And so here are some actions I think that we should take as comforters. Don't just pray for them, but offer to pray with them. I am super bad, especially in the age of social media, at telling people, praying for you. Praying for you. Wayne, you've got something going on? I'm praying for you. Cooper, you got something going on? I'm praying for you. And if I'm being honest, sometimes when I say I'm praying for you, what I mean is I feel bad for your situation. I mentioned you quickly in my prayers now, and then I'm going to forget about it. But to offer to a friend who's sitting and talking with you, hey, not only am I going to pray for you, but would it be all right now if I prayed with you? That means a lot. I don't know if you've ever been sitting with someone that offers to pray for you. It's encouraging. It really is. And again, I know for some of us, this is uncomfortable. Oh, I just don't know if that's me. I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I could sit with someone and just offer to pray for them like that. I'd encourage you, step out of your comfort zone. Do it. You will find not only does it encourage them, it's going to encourage you as well. Be the kind of friend that will sit and pray with them. Listen. Just listen. Don't feel like you have to come in with all the answers. Carrie could tell you pretty quickly that this is something I struggle with in our relationship. When a problem arises in her life, I feel like I have to come in with all the answers, which is challenging for someone like me because guess what? I do not have all of the answers. Surprise, surprise. But I think sometimes we show up and we feel like we have to say the right thing. We have to have the perfect one-liner. Not all of us are Dale Hartman. Dale, I feel like he's always got some perfect line that he'll say. I'm like, well, that was perfect, Dale. Like, where'd you come up with that? He just knows it. Sheila's over here like, well, wait, I've got some stories too. But sometimes it's not about the perfectly placed word. Sometimes it's not about coming in and solving their problems. Sometimes it's about sitting down and saying, what's going on? And then keeping your mouth closed and just listening to the things that they have to share. It may seem small, but I promise you, for someone who is struggling with things in their life, just someone who will listen, it means a lot. Finally, an action we need to take is just know your limits. When you have a friend who begins to open up with you about the depression that they are dealing with in your life, you may reach a point where you say, this is too much for me to handle on my own. There's no shame in that. We do not need to be afraid, like we talked about last week, telling a friend, I think you should sit down and talk with somebody who's more qualified. Go see a professional counselor. They're going to be more help. Because I think sometimes in an attempt to be of service to a friend, we begin giving advice in areas that we have no business giving advice because we don't know. We have no experience. Certainly, God's Word is always going to be a good place to go for advice. But there are some issues that we just haven't been trained in. And instead of sitting and trying to give advice that we're not equipped to give, we need to know our limits. You can continue to be supportive. You can continue to be at their side. You just need to say, right now, the most supportive thing that I can do for you is to find someone who is more equipped to help you with what's going on. That's okay. Don't, though, just be the friend who knows about the problems. We have to be those who are willing to take action. Number 3, a good friend is slow to speak. Maybe I should repeat this one for myself and for some of us. A good friend is slow to speak. I continue to be blown away by the fact that Job's friends waited 7 days. For 7 days, they said nothing. I don't know about you, I couldn't go 7 minutes without going, okay, I need to kill this awkward silence. And I'd say something. Well, Job, and I'd say the wrong thing. Usually when I try to kill the awkward silence, I put my foot in my mouth. And I make it more uncomfortable. And so Job's friends, they waited for 7 days. Job's friends only became bad friends when they opened their mouth. Up to that point, they were doing great. If they had just kept their mouths closed, they would have been wonderful comforters. James 1:19 tells us, be slow to speak, be quick to listen. When we are slow to speak, it gives us time to listen. It gives us time to think about what should be said. And so eventually there is going to come a time where you do speak, like Job's friends. And so when you do speak, let me give you some advice as to what you should or should not say. Number 1, don't make promises that God hasn't made. What I mean by that is, as you have a friend who is dealing with depression and dealing with different challenges in their life, do not try to be God's voice for him unless it's something you already know that he has said. Here are some examples. I know you're sad, but I know that God let this happen to you because he has something better planned for you. That's speaking for God. You don't know why God allowed it to happen. You have no idea. Job's friends, they make the mistake of saying, well, this happened because, and they start giving reasons. And guess what? They were speaking for God. And when God finally speaks, he says, nope, that's not right. I know he or she hurt you, but God let this happen because he has someone else planned for you. That's me trying to be a comfort, and I put words into God's mouth. I don't need to do that. Now, can I speak comforting words? Absolutely. Are there promises that God has made that can be an encouragement to people? Yes. But do not try to speak for God. Don't make promises that God himself has not made. Secondly, when you do speak, don't add fuel to the fire. If your friend is already depressed and struggling and angry, the last thing they need you to do is to fan that flame, to add to the fire. And what I mean by that is, if you have a friend that wants to sit and vent, it is okay to listen. But there are going to be times where we think we are encouraging by also talking negatively about the things that are going on in their life. And what happens sometimes is as they're hearing those things, they go, okay, good. It's not just me. This is a negative thing. And so now I'm not talking about tragedies. I'm not trying to put a positive spin on bad things that happen in life. But when someone comes down and they say, I'm depressed about my job. I'm just depressed in my work. And then when we begin to, with them, rip on their boss and rip on what they do. Or I'm depressed because of some of the things that I'm dealing with at home. And then we begin to say negative things about their spouse. We think we're encouraging them by jumping on board and sharing. But what we're doing is we're adding fuel to the fire. And we are just reassuring them of all those negative feelings that they already have. They don't need help feeling more depressed. They don't need help feeling more angry. It's okay to listen. Don't fuel the fire. Thirdly, when you do speak, don't make light of their feelings. Do not ever make light of someone's feelings, especially when they are feelings you have not dealt with before. Cheer up. There's good things going on in your life. You just need to cheer up. You just need to smile more. That's your problem. If you would just smile more, you wouldn't be so depressed. You shouldn't let this bother you so much. I know it seems like a lot, but you shouldn't let this bother you so much. It's not that big of a deal. And what you're doing is you're telling a person, even though you are dealing with this crippling depression that you are struggling with, you're weak because what you're dealing with is not a big deal. If I was dealing with it, it'd be nothing. And so you just need to up your game and be better. People don't need to hear that. Don't make them feel like they are in the wrong for feeling down. Comfort them. All you have to say is, I am so sorry that you are feeling this way. That's it. I am so sorry that you are dealing with the feelings that you're dealing with. And don't be afraid to admit that you don't have the answers. When they ask questions like, why is this happening to me? You don't have to have an answer. Why would God let this happen to me? You don't have to feel like you have the answers. It is okay to say, I don't know. And I'm very sorry that you're having to deal with this. And just be there and listen. Guys, if you are like me, you want to be a problem solver. When problems are there, you're like, well, let's see what we got to do here. And frequently, I end up doing things that I don't know what I'm doing. It's the reason I call my father-in-law when my car breaks down. Because I could start to play with it, because I feel like it needs to be fixed. But eventually, I'm just going to make the problem worse. And so I'm going to call someone who knows what they're doing. The same is true when we're dealing with friends who are facing struggles. Sometimes we need to say, it's okay, I don't know, but I'm going to be here for you either way. Fourth and finally, as we're talking about what makes a good friend and a good comforter, a good friend has the right view of God. We talked about this week one. Sometimes we have an incorrect view of God. Our view of God is if I do good things, then God is going to do good things for me. But the truth that we talked about is the fact that sometimes bad things happen to God's people. That is just a fact. And if we don't have the right view of God, we are going to be terrible comforters. And I know that because that's what happened with Job's friends. When they finally did open their mouth, they had the wrong view of God. They thought, well, Job, if you've got these bad things happening in your life, then you must have done something wrong. And if not you, then your kids who died, they must have done something wrong. I mean, just be quiet. Job's friends, just be quiet. You were doing so good. Job's friends believed in what we call karma. If you do good, you're going to get good. And if you do bad, you're going to get bad. Which means if bad things are happening to you, then what? You did good. You did bad. This is on you. Now, Tim mentioned last week in his sermon about, or 2 weeks ago, this was a long week. This week felt like a month, so I don't know what week it is. But Tim mentioned in his sermon on suffering, sometimes suffering is a result of our own choices. And so I don't want anyone to ever think that it's never our own fault. But what I don't want us to believe is that every bad thing that happens to us in our life is God's retribution on us. It doesn't work that way. God has promised us bad things are going to happen to all people, even to God's people. And so having the right view of God means that we help our friends understand that God is still with them. Look, I know you feel hurt. I know you feel like you are all alone, but you need to understand God is still with you. We understand that hard times can be a result of our actions, but they may not be. And so we don't ever comfort someone by saying, well, you know, maybe if you would just do these things differently, you wouldn't be. You have to be careful, especially when it's an area that God has not spoken. Now, yes, if we've got a friend who has sin in their life and the problems that are coming up over and over are a direct result of that, I think we are called by God to help them understand that. But we need to understand when it's the right time to say that and when it's the wrong time. And having the right view of God means we remind our friends that the only place we can find hope and healing and peace is in Christ. That's what it means to have the right view of God. If you don't have the right view of God, you have no business trying to comfort someone, because you are eventually going to say something that God does not want you to say. And unfortunately, the book of Job is 42 chapters, and we've got 4 verses of really good friends, and then an entire book of just Job's friends repeatedly putting their foot in their mouth over and over and over again. And finally, the book ends with God telling Job, you've got bad friends. Don't listen to them. I'm God. let me be in charge of it. And that may not be the message that Job wanted to hear, but Job accepts it. Don't be the kind of friend that doesn't have the right view of God. As we have begun, talking about some of these things, opening up about some of these issues, already the staff and the elders have begun to hear from some people saying, look, this is something that I wrestle with. This is a challenge for me. We knew that no matter how we handled this subject, if you open the door, people are going to want to share. But that means on our end, and when I say our, I don't just mean the elders and the staff, I mean as the church, we need to be prepared as the people of God to help those who stand up and say, I do need help because I'm not okay. And that doesn't just mean a pat on the back when they come forward during an invitation song where we say, hey, praying for you. It means being the kind of friend that will sit, that will listen, that will put your life on hold so that I can be there for you, that will, when it's necessary, be quiet and just sit and listen. And when I do speak the truth of God, to have the right view of God, and not make promises that God has not made. And so for some of us tonight, the message that we just need to hear is, these are the kind of friends that you need to be looking for. If you are dealing with depression, you need to surround yourself with the kind of people that we've talked about tonight. People who will listen. People who will be open with you and share with you and just sit and be there for you. And people who are going to encourage you the right way, who aren't going to add fuel to the fire, but are going to lead you in the way that God wants you to be led. Because some of us have surrounded ourselves with terrible comforters. We are dealing with depression, and we spend time with other people who just fuel it. And we go, I don't know why I can't escape these bad feelings. And it's because we go and we sit with people who just say the same things. Now, look, that doesn't mean we can't be a support to others who are dealing with depression. But if those are the only people you surround yourself with, you're going to be in trouble. So surround yourself with the kind of friends that we've been talking about tonight. But I'm guessing the majority of us need to hear the lesson that these are the types of friends and comforters and the type of church that we need to be. That we can assist, that we can be a resource for those who need help, that we can sit and listen, that we can be like Job's friends on the front end and not so much like Job's friends on the back end. And so this evening, I want to just end the same way we've ended every night, and that is to tell you that it is okay to not be okay. What is not okay is to stay that way. And so we as the church want to be a resource for you. And whether that is through a public response tonight, whether it is through a private email to our elders, whether it is through coming and talking to someone one-on-one, we want to be a resource for you. And one way that we want to be a resource coming up is a luncheon that we are putting together October 31st. It is a luncheon in which we're going to have a professional counselor come in and answer some questions and talk to you and share with you. And so October 31st, if that is something that interests you, we'll put it on your calendar. There's going to be some more announcements about that later. But we want to give you an opportunity to come and get the help that you might need. But even if that resource doesn't sound like something that you are interested in, we hope that tonight you will begin to take the steps that you need to get healing. And you can't do that alone.